Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan ONeal.
We talk first about Trump and Cohen and their statements from Thursday morning.
It does seem to be heating up quite a bit, and I think basically the problem Mueller has is coming up with some sort of evidence that will be convincing to a court or a grand jury. Now, again, you try any Republican before a grand jury in Washington, D.C., and their chances are pretty slim of not being indicted. And there have been some really sad cases there where the prosecution has kept evidence from the defendant. For example, Senator Stevens out of Alaska was treated in a very shoddy fashion and was indicted. And finally the case was thrown out because the prosecution had withheld important information. But the point is, you get before a jury or a grand jury in Washington, D.C., and you're a Republican, you're pretty much toast. So I don't know how that all plays into Mueller's calculations, but I do think a couple of things. One, the Republicans are going to increase their hold in the U.S. Senate in January. And not only are they going to increase it, but Flake and I think it's Corky and perhaps another rather lukewarm senator are going to be gone. And so the ones that are replacing him now, the one in Arizona obviously is a Democrat, but the one in Tennessee certainly is not, solid Republican. And he's picking up a few other very solid Republicans. So the chances of Mueller being simply fired, I think, are going up pretty fast here, especially if Trump reaches out and appoints a permanent attorney general. I think the whole thing could come to an end pretty fast. So Mueller, I think, is trying very desperately to get something put together and get something out there. And I don't know. There just doesn't seem to be much there for him to act on, unless he's holding back on some really hot stuff. But Trump seems pretty clear and been pretty consistent in his denials, and going after people like Manafort, who has recently just reneged on his agree to cooperate with the special prosecutor. I think basically in Manafort's case, Trump will simply pardon him. And
that was a question I had. That came up recently, and Trump said no reason not to.
Yeah, no, he'll pardon him. First of all, Mueller has to come up with some charges, and I think then Trump has the power to simply... Now, again, you may get New York State and this new attorney general we have in New York State. They may try to bring state charges of some sort or another. I don't know.
Barbara Underwood, the acting AG for New York State, is saying she wants to sign on to that over a dozen states lawsuit against Trump.
For what?
It's over, I think illegal immigration.
Yeah, well, that's a policy difference there, and they're free to do that. The real question is these attempts to find illegal activity on the part of the Trump Foundation or the Trump family. I mean, there's been no other president, as far as I can think, that has received this kind of treatment. Now, some of the presidents have been treated roughly, there's no question, but from the get-go, the Clintons, I think, to a great extent, were originally behind all this, but I think it just blossomed totally out of control, and the results, I think, could be pretty bad for the nation.
Hillary's dropped some hints, pretty past hints, really. Hillary's saying she wants to run again.
Yes, I see she and Bill are out on a tour of some sort. Does she have another book out or something? I don't know, but apparently it's not getting a whole lot of enthusiasm. I think the Democrats would just wish Hillary would go away and take her hashtag #MeToo husband along with her. but they just keep coming back again and again.
That doesn't help Chelsea. I don't think.
No, I don't know. Chelsea can take care of herself, I guess. I don't know.
Cuomo met on Wednesday with President Trump, talked the Holland Tunnel issue. Cuomo came away pretty much all positive.
Yeah, I guess Trump was originally positive too, and they may have reached some kind of understanding that they kind of let things die down a little bit here. I'm not sure.
He's not running though, he says, in 2020.
Yes, Governor Cuomo has made it plain that he wants to be governor of New York because there are a lot of things he needs to do yet here in New York, and he's going to be working on those projects as governor, and not interested in running for the presidency at all. Well, I don't know. People change their mind on that sort of thing, of course, and it's quite possible. Again, I'm not quite sure how old Andrew Cuomo is, but he could kind of watch 2020 play itself out and then step forward 4 years later. On the other hand, well, yeah, I think he could. I think he's got a very strong hold on New York State government right now, and he may be able to do some reasonably useful things for the state. One of the things that's kind of interesting is his talk again of dealing with this whole idea of fusion voting, which I think would be a very good thing for New York State to get rid of. I think we're one of 3 states that allow candidates to run on 2 or 3 different party lines and then add their votes up and total them. And that leads to all kinds of problems in the state, so that your friend of the Libertarian and some of these others would have a hard time just simply getting on the ballot. And that would be fine, I think, in terms of giving Democrats and Republicans more control of the government and the electoral process. And I don't see why the Republicans wouldn't go along with this. Obviously, the Conservative Party's been helpful to the Republicans in a number of areas around the state, but those conservative voters will vote Republican if there isn't anybody on the conservative line. The other thing that could be changed is that the threshold for getting a line on the ballot, I think, should be raised up to 200,000 votes for governor in the last election. Now it's just 50,000. So you get the Green candidates and working family candidates, all these people trying to get at least 50,000 votes for their party line so that they'll be on the ballot automatically next time around. And I think making 200,000, it's shut that down pretty fast too. So there are some good things that could be done out there. And healthcare is another one, of course, but I think Cuomo's made it pretty clear that he's not going to support a universal Medicare or health care program in New York State. New York State has done pretty well, frankly, in terms of its health care opportunities for citizens. And I think they deserve credit for that. But I was talking to one of my colleagues the other day, and something that we don't recognize is that along the border, our northern border, a lot of these medical facilities get quite a bit of business from Canada. So you want to go single payer and universal health care, take a look at Canada, and then take a look at how many of those guys come across the border for health care in this country. And it's not necessarily that our health care is that much better, but you don't have to wait in line and take a chance of dying off before the Canadians finally have to deal with you. And apparently, like the province of Ontario, for example, allows its citizens to purchase Blue Cross Blue Shield health care from the United States. So they can come right across and use their health care insurance in this country. So both Ontario and Quebec have kind of 2-tier health systems, which does allow people to get health care in this country. And some of them, I guess, just come across and pay cash. They're just not going to wait. So the idea of changing all that around, I'm not certain that some of these insurance companies and the medical providers are all that interested in changing things that much in that respect. So I think Cuomo's on pretty good ground there. But when it comes to medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, opening up the school systems, things of that sort, gun control, he's obviously going to come down full barrel on that.
You talked a bit about immigrants coming in from Canada. Some visitors tried to make it in from Honduras. They were stopped at the border. The tear gas videos were seen all over the mainstream media now. I saw somebody on Fox the other night who said that, it was a Border Patrol guy, and he said he was disgusted with the people on the caravan because they put the children up in front and then started throwing rocks.
Oh, absolutely.
And that gets left out of the reporting.
Right. They know they're playing the press, and the press loves to do it. It's thinking more and more about this claim about division in the country and we're polar opposites. I'm not certain that's as true by any means that the press makes it. So that in this election in Mississippi, we went on and on about it was a racial divide, etc., because the woman, the Republican candidate, had made some comment offhand about.
She said something stupid about. Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was a stupid thing to say, but I don't think it was racially motivated in any sense. But the press immediately picks it up, and obviously you get some of these activist groups, the leaders, they want to pick it up as outrageous. And this leads into our whole discussion of dog whistle politics here, Brian, which I know you've been looking forward to discuss. A couple of years ago, someone published a book on dog whistle politics. And the liberals have been playing this and playing it and playing it. The idea is you make a statement, and that's not really what you mean. It's like the dog whistle, only the racists and the anti-Semites and anti-feminists and such, they pick up on what you're saying. So that when you say something against gay marriage, you're really homophobic. You say something against Israel, well, you're actually anti-Semitic. You say something about women in one sort or another, maybe that they shouldn't be in active combat. Well, clearly you're anti-feminist. So that they argue that what the liberals do with the dog whistle approach is they take anything a conservative says and make it up into something else that what they really mean is this. And the liberals have used it again and again and again, that somehow Wolf Blitzer is really quite good at this. Talking to a conservative, and Blitzer will say something like, well, don't you really think that what you're saying is, yeah, right. That's why I think CNN's not all that popular anymore. But it's really a pretty cunning effort on the part of the liberals to say, to undercut any kind of clear-cut statement made by conservatives. Now, the interesting thing about the Mississippi election, some of these other elections, is it'll be really quite interesting to see how the minority vote goes in terms of the Republican vote. Because if I read it right, Trump is really picking up support among African Americans and Latino, Hispanic parts of the population, primarily because the economy has done particularly well. But again, it takes us back to the whole border thing, and anything they can do to show heart-rending shots of this or that, the press will play it up again and again and again because, frankly, the press hates Trump. And I think Trump probably doesn't have much use for the press either. Although I must say he plays them pretty well.
Doc, the G20 is coming. Are you going to be a participant?
Well, I've put in for travel vouchers. I don't certain how it'll work out. But that could be pretty important because I think Trump is going to go. I think it's tomorrow, actually, in, I believe, Argentina. And it's of course, it's to discuss economic issues of one sort or another. They probably won't come up with any kind of general statement because Trump and some of these other countries are, to put it mildly, at odds on economic policy. It doesn't mean it doesn't worthwhile to have a sit down and talk it over, but it also gives Trump a chance to meet with Xi Jinping of China and Putin. And of course, the situation of Putin, I think Trump was saying that he wasn't even going to meet with him, but I guess he's changed his mind on that because Putin is pushing, once again, a very dangerous situation against the Ukraine. And again, we get all this talk about the Mueller investigation and this a bunch of people pushing at the border in Mexico, and we're on the verge of actually of a very serious war in the Ukraine. Putin very badly wants the Ukraine back. And as you know, I think they fired on a number of Ukrainian ships and took prisoner sailors from several Ukrainian ships. Ukraine wants those prisoners, wants their people back. And so it's a very, very nasty situation. And I think NATO and the U.S., including the U.S., have to stand up to Putin on this particular point. And I think that's where Trump and Putin better be having a conversation tomorrow.
Hey, Doc, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about Congressman Tom Reed and problem solvers deal that he worked out.
Oh, good, sure.
Walker Metalsmiths jewelry is not only American-made, it's local.
We're also blessed to have an exceptionally gifted gem cutter that is also local.
Peter Taraka cuts sapphires, tourmaline, fancy color garnets, and many other beautiful stones.
Friday, November 30th, we're having a special event. From noon to 8 p.m., Peter will personally be presenting his gems at Walker Metalsmiths, and we will be showing new jewelry set with his creations.
Join us in the village of Andover. Holiday hours are 9 to 6 weekdays and 10 to 4 Saturday.
Checking in now with meteorologist Rob Carroll, who's saying it's going to be kind of a bland day today.
It's going to be kind of a gray day across the region. Satellite photos this morning of the southern tier showing cloudiness stretching from Lake Erie through the Binghamton area and beyond. In fact, there's clouds all the way now into almost central Massachusetts. They extend all the way down almost to the Gulf Coast, so not a nice couple of days coming up. The upside to the forecast, though, Brian, is a storm system that brought flooding rains to California yesterday. It's going to help push some milder air across the country, and we're in for a bit of a warm-up. It should turn quite mild here by Sunday. Clouds today, a couple of showers around this morning. They'd be snow showers or flurries. This afternoon, they'd be rain showers, were 35 to 40. Sunrise earlier this morning was at 7:19. The sun will set this afternoon at 4:39. We'll have clouds tonight. If you're headed out, it's going to be chilly, 25 to 30. Tomorrow, lots of clouds, breezy, with rain developing tomorrow afternoon, highs 40 to 45. Rainy and breezy tomorrow night with lows of 40 to 45. In fact, temperatures will start to go up tomorrow night. A few leftover showers, breezy, and unusually mild for Sunday. High Sunday, Brian, 55 to 60 degrees.
Back with Dr. Bob.
Hello.
Dr. Robert A. Heineman, Congressman Tom Reed scored a big one with getting Nancy Pelosi to agree to this deal with the Problem Solvers Caucus. Now they can have votes. What is it? 290 people support something, and they can have a vote as opposed to doing what the House leaders want.
Yeah, well, I think it's a good thing. I think there are a number of aspects here. Pelosi has obviously finally gotten a pretty good-sized vote in her caucus to be nominated as Speaker of the House. And part of that is, of course, the Democrats in the Problem Solvers Caucus have reached a deal with her. And I think there are 30 Democrats and 30 Republicans, something like that. I don't think she talked to Reed or the Republicans. But obviously, the Democrats and the Problem Solvers Caucus are on the same page with the Republicans. And really what they're pushing for is a much more bipartisan effort there in the House of Representatives. Now, again, Pelosi got a pretty good chunk of the Democrat caucus. I think there were 32 or so that voted against her. And when she gets to be nominated on the floor of the House, she needs 218 votes. And I think a lot of those people who voted against her in the Democrat caucus will, in fact, vote for her for Speaker of the House, because now she's... But from that point on, I think her ability to control the House is going to be quite a bit different from the first time she was Speaker. When she was Speaker previously, none of these bipartisan procedures were in place. And, for example, when the Rules Committee, and I don't want to get into this to any guy, the Rules Committee, tremendously important committee in the House of Representatives, basically sets the rules for how debate will be conducted on a bill. And what the Democrats would do would consistently provide a closed rule, meaning you could not amend it, you either had to vote it up or down. And that just shut the Republicans out entirely. And what Reid is looking at, and the problem solvers are looking at, is that they won't be able to do that as they did in the past. So basically, and I assume she's agreed to this, basically the whole idea is not only to open up the procedure so that they can get things moving along faster, but also to give the Republicans a bigger voice and on committee membership, on ability to amend measures on the floor, and bring up pieces of legislation that a committee might have bottled up. If you get so many people signing on, and I think that's where the 290 comes in, they have to bring it up in a more reasonable fashion on the floor. So I think Nancy Pelosi is going to have a heck of a lot more difficult time trying to push things through without more widespread support in the House. But previously, it was Obama was in the presidency, she was Speaker of the House, and they just banged things right through. Going to be more difficult this time.
Well, Dr. Bob, we're just about out of time. Was there anything I did not bring up that you wanted to...
Oh, I think you, once again, Brian, have touched on the really important issues out there. And
you all set for that G20 meeting tomorrow?
Well, we'll just have to... I mean, there's probably a few good football games on, but we can sit back and...
Yeah, I was looking at the Bilderberg's list, which is kind of interesting, the attendees that go to the Bilderberg meetings, and there's a bunch of poli-sci professors that go.
Well, you got to watch this pretty closely. Conspiracy politics, scary stuff. So that I do think, in terms of the G20, I think that's important. It deserves to be talked about. But also, I think, like the election in Mississippi, where they were trying to play up that somehow this was going to be a very close election, et cetera, et cetera. It was pretty clear by after an hour and a half or so of returns that this election was totally over. It just sort of disappeared off the agenda of the media. They don't want to talk about the fact that the Republicans once again gained and picked up support. So right now, I would say Trump has a pretty solid base, starting in North Carolina, going around through Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, all the way over to Texas, and including Arizona, plus the border states of Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Missouri. That's a pretty good base. Not enough to win the presidency, but certainly a good start. And again, the media keeps playing up the fact that this Democrat won the seat in Alabama. And the point there is, of course, the guy who was running against this Roy Moore was a total idiot. And every Republican in their right mind just distanced themselves totally from the guy. And so the Democrats slipped one in there. That's no indication at all, the support that Trump has in Alabama, which I would guess is pretty high.
Doc, with that, we've got to fly. Thank you so much for stopping in.
All right, let's keep in touch on these items, Brian.